And time now today for the press review, and for that I'm joined in the studio by Alison Sargent. Hello, Alison.
Hi, Annette.
And we're going to start in Israel, where once again we've been seeing clashes in Jerusalem as Israeli nationalists mark Jerusalem Day.
Yeah, Annette, the perfect storm has really been brewing over Jerusalem. That's according to the Jerusalem Post. The paper lists the numerous factors that have been leading to this latest outbreak of violence, the end of Ramadan this year, coinciding not only with Jerusalem Day, but also with the potential evictions of Palestinian families from East Jerusalem, as well as the cancellation of Palestinian elections. Now, Israel's left-wing paper Haaretz calls the Jerusalem Day flag march a immoral march that has always been aimed, the paper says, at harming local Palestinians. And in an analysis piece that you see here, Haaretz explores why, despite Jerusalem having, as they say, all the ingredients of a new intifada, why it hasn't happened yet. And according to Haaretz, the reason for that is that no one seems to want this situation to escalate, not the Palestinian Authority, which the paper says is anxious about losing control to Hamas, and not Benjamin Netanyahu, who the paper reminds us is really fighting for his political survival.
And next to Afghanistan, with the Taliban having declared a ceasefire to mark the end of Ramadan, but papers there are still reacting to attacks that took place over the weekend.
Yeah, notably an attack that killed dozens of schoolgirls. No group has yet claimed responsibility, but it targeted the country's Hazara community. The New York Times explains that the Hazara are a Shiite minority that has really made the most of educational and business opportunities in Afghanistan since the 2001 U.S. invasion. With the U.S. now poised to leave, the Hazara are worried that this massacre is just a prelude, and they really don't trust the Afghan government to protect them. The New York Times calls this attack the latest evidence that Afghanistan is on the verge of unraveling. Many do see the U.S. departure as somewhat of a gift to the Taliban. That's the idea of this cartoon from pan-Arab paper Al Arab. The U.S. there we see airdropping Afghanistan right into the lap of the Taliban as they fly away.
Now, here in France, a far-right magazine, Valeurs Actuelles, has published yet another controversial open letter written by members of the military.
Yeah, now you might remember that a couple weeks ago, this magazine, Valeurs Actuelles, published a letter from former members of the French military. It caused a bit of a scandal. The Figaro explains that it was seen as a call to far-right insurrection and led to some of those former military members facing punishment. This latest letter was written by active members of the military, and for that reason, they all remain anonymous because they technically don't have the right to be expressing themselves politically in this way. Now, this letter went online last night, and it's already gotten well over 400,000 signatures of support. This letter basically warns that France's very survival is being threatened by Islamism. To give you a bit of a taste of this letter, the soldiers write that they've all been part of France's anti-terrorism patrols and have, quote, seen with their own eyes the abandoned suburbs and attempts to manipulate politics from religious communities who they say that for these religious communities, France is nothing but an object of sarcasm, resentment, and hate.
And over the weekend, Tesla founder Elon Musk hosted the iconic American comedy show Saturday Night Live, Alison, and his appearance is actually getting a lot of reaction, isn't it?
It sure is, Annette. The Guardian gives Elon Musk a rather scathing review. They call it a brutally awkward episode and write that Elon Musk greatly overestimates his talent for comedy. The Guardian also notes that this is the most controversial SNL episode since Donald Trump hosted the show back in 2015. While he was a presidential candidate. You might remember that that episode was met with a lot of criticism from people who said that it really allowed Donald Trump to seem mainstream and non-threatening and really masked his real political power that he was building before he was elected president. One writer for The Atlantic today basically argues that Elon Musk is doing the same thing. They say this was real brand management designed to gloss over the actual power that Elon Musk wields as one of the world's richest men. This writer reminds us that Musk is a billionaire commanding a personality cult with trollish tweets, a man who has downplayed the threat of COVID-19. They say we should really be united in wariness that, quote, Elon Musk could drop a rocket on any of our heads, whether we're laughing at him or not.
Okay, now finally from you, a story, please, with a happy ending. It's about a lobster who managed to avoid being eaten at a seafood restaurant.
That's right. So it has a happy ending for this one lobster, at least, and that's because he was not just any lobster, but actually a rare breed of calico lobster. According to the Washington Post, the chances of seeing one are just 1 in 30 million. So you can imagine actually eating one would have been quite a big event, but Freckles, the lobster, as he has now been nicknamed, was luckily spotted by employees at this Red Lobster restaurant. They contacted a local zoo that had rescued another rare type of lobster that the restaurant had found last year, so maybe fishermen need to start tightening their controls of lobsters before they send them off to restaurants. Anyway, Freckles will now be living out the rest of his days as part of the lobster display at the Virginia Living Museum, so it has a happy ending for Freckles, but not for the other lobsters, unless Freckles decides to mount a resistance and go back and rescue them.
Indeed, free at last. Okay. Thanks for that, Alison.